Hello friends, I made this far. My name is Lauren. I am an astrology type person, tarot reader, artist, teacher, and Capricorn living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Today's video is all about the full moon tomorrow. We are in the middle of Pisces season, and of course Pisces season means that we will have a full moon in Virgo. And of course, if you've been with me before, you know that I love looking at tarot. I like this better. I'm lower. I love looking at tarot as a way to reflect back and kind of learn more through astrology and vice versa. So today I'm going to be talking about two cards that represent Virgo and Pisces in the tarot. That is the Moon and the Hermit. Burp it up. I'm going to talk to you about how we can look at these as reflections of each other, how they push each other, because the moon is in opposition to the sun. That is how we see this play out. Anytime we see a full moon, it is going to be in the opposite sign of the sun. So that's a fun little fact. You can do with that as you wish. But the opposites across from each other in the astrological wheel, these are always going to be either inward or outward energies, right? So Pisces is mutable water, Virgo is mutable earth. So those are just a few little baby astrology tidbits if that is supportive of you. So for example, we see that Cancer is opposite of Capricorn. Those two are reflections of each other. They help each other. They are mirrored aspects of each other. They're not exactly the same, but they have the same core values, just different ways and different languages around those values. So for example, when we talk about Virgo and Pisces, the phrase for Pisces is I believe. The phrase for Virgo is I scrutinize. So that's kind of an interesting play, right? But let's see through the tarot how these two might actually be really supportive of each other. And we're going to start with, of course, going over what decks am I using today, you ask? Well, I'm going to be using the Holy Spectrum Tarot, the 8th House Tarot, and the Line Strider Tarot. Ooh, very cool. Some of these I've used on my channel before, maybe even gone over Pisces card I did in my last video. Links to that down below. I will link it away so you can look at it, watch it, think about, wow, Lauren, you're just so smart. But anyway, let's get into the good stuff. Of course, if you want to support me and or work with me, links are also down below. You can find me at subnormalchild.com. I am the Subnormal Child, and you can find me on all platforms as Subnormal Child. Thank you for coming. What the fuck is up? So let's get into it, right? Let's start with my favorite, or at least my current favorite, the Holy Spectrum Tarot. Beautiful matte black. I love it. So in my old video, my other video that I made this month about Pisces, we're looking at Pisces as the void, the way that we translate the messages of our dreams and transverse those. So we see on this card a person floating in the water and these three directions that they can choose. Now what's interesting when we see the Hermit, which again is Virgo, we see a person alone and we see the moon in the mountains, again having to traverse the unknown. So if we're almost looking at these as a narrative, we can see this is the first chapter and this being later on in the story. Here is where we have to decide which journey to take. And then Virgo says, or the Hermit says, well, we must take this journey slow and long, and we will do it whatever way we can, lighting our own light. That's an important thing that I've talked about on my channel before, is that This light, the light of the hermit, is reflective of this idea of we must be our own lights in the darkness. We must find our own path. We must forge our own way. So we see that, again, we have the option of choice, which is, if we're looking at it as a narrative, which I love to do, we see Pisces season as being the invitation for us to choose our journey, choose a path through our subconscious, the subconscious being reflected as the moon. But of course, with this full moon in Virgo, we're being reminded that the path that we do choose, we must be slow and methodical and mindful. It's not a race, it's a journey. So this card really reminds us to slow down and to ground down. When we are in a watery space, when that full moon, when we're in a watery element of season, the full moon is usually a good grounding time. That goes for Pisces, whether it's also Cancer or Scorpio. We see these elements in their full moons that are coming up as reflections of, look, slow the fuck down, you're cool. We're cool. Cool. So that's one way of looking at it through the holy spectrum, right? This is that deck. Let's look a little bit more at the 8th house tarot, right? So this is the 8th house tarot wolf card, that is the moon. And again, we see this connection to the primal. We see the animals here. We see the animals here. We see the animals howling at the moon. We also see that they almost reflect the mountains, right? Really interesting. I love to see how that changes and grows. So we see that we can follow this river through our subconscious. Again, this element of water is really great in the 8th house tarot here. And this really reflects Pisces season really well to me, right? Because again, we're entering the space, the void, the reflection that is the moon is coming to us as a reflection. If we're using this as just strictly tarot, how can we reflect on the subconscious, right? That's what the moon is for. That's what the moon is telling us. The moon is asking us to say, what can we illuminate in our subconscious? So what does Virgo have to teach us? If we're, again, looking at this as a narrative, we're journeying down. We're journeying with our senses, our primordial essence, our primal natural instincts in Pisces. So where does this ground us? Where do we find this grounding sense? Well, the Hermit in this card is all these little caterpillars being turned into butterflies. Again, the journey is slowing down. The journey must slow so that we can ground into intention and ground into some magic. And that is the magic of Virgo, of the Hermit, is saying it's okay to take your time. We're illuminating for ourselves. But this also, this Virgo card, this Hermit card also reminds us that we collectively go through this. We might internally just be on our own for a lot of it, but how we transform ourselves is not just for ourselves. It is for the collective. So as we go through this unknown journey, alone and through the wilderness, through our subconscious, through our dreams, we're finding ourselves grounding and strength and intention that allows us to be fully present in our healing in a way that slows us down. Again, if we're looking at the visuals of this card, I love this version of the Hermit, because what does the butterfly do in the cocoon but liquefy to be reborn in this form? So this is the journey to grounding for us in this season. Again, if we're reflecting back to what this season has to teach us in this full moon, we might have to die a little. Things might have to go by the wayside. But it's okay. We will be okay. So, let me continue on that journey. Let's continue on that journey with our last deck of teaching today. Last deck of teaching. Again, we're looking at these as narratives. We have to pick what direction we go down, realizing it's going to be a slow and arduous task, but we have the light with us. We can do it. We might be entering a void. We might be seeing something that feels intense and that we're not quite ready to go down. But if it is painful, this moon is a reminder that the liquefaction process will bring us whole and back again. Because the process doesn't have to look like anything else for anyone else's. It's just us. So, last card, like I said, sorry, just wanted to recap those two before we moved on. But we're here now, let's go. We see the moon. Again, the animals are present. I talked about this in my other video. These different animals have symbolism that, of course, you can get into that nitty-gritty. I recommend Rachel Pollack's book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. But I'm not here to just tell you what each animal represents. I'm here to give you the holistic ideas behind what this fucking means. If that is what you need, I'm sorry. But we see the structures in place. Everything is floating in the background, right? The moon and the structures, everything is ungrounded. But when we connect back to our animalness, when we connect back to this animal essence, we follow those instincts, we follow those heartfelt instincts that help us move. That's where the magic happens, and that's where we're seeing this connection. So we can see which animal, again, which animal serves you best? Which path are you choosing, baby? Baby, no worries. Just be you. Just be you, yo. We good, we good. The journey is weird. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. But let's see the Hermit in this deck, because talking about not making it harder than it needs to be, we see a bear. The bear is really a great visual, right? Because it reminds us of this need for hibernating. Again, we got to take our time. Sometimes we got to liquefy. Maybe your hermit mode is more like the bear that has to hibernate. We have to take care of us. Winter is long. Don't fucking do too much. Do you. Do you. So this bear reminds us to do that. We see the bear has the light around its neck. Again, reminding us that we have the illumination with us. We don't need anybody else's tools. We have the tools. We have what we need. It's a long, arduous journey. We might liquefy in the cocoon, but we have our tools. And even though we might be feeling downtrodden, we see the ribs sticking out. This bear is wounded. There is death. There's a skull here. So there's death present. The bear still looks on. And even though it seems a little disconnected, it is the journey that is grounding for this card. So there is pain that this animal is carrying. But that pain becomes wisdom because we see that the bear is sitting on top of this skull, reminding us that the pain that we have gone through in its own way is a tool, because it teaches us where we are wounded and where we don't make certain mistakes again, or where we can grow, where we learned lessons that were not easy. And not to say that, oh, everything happens for a reason, because clearly it doesn't. I'm sorry, everyone in the woo sphere, everyone who is woke, quote unquote. Sometimes shit just sucks, and that's okay. But if you can take that pain with you as a lesson that helps you, fuck yeah, man, that's totally my vibe. Totally your vibe. Good vibes, my guy, girl, there, or anything else. We like to be inclusive here. So you're good to go, right? So again, we pick our journey. Things might not feel grounded. A lot of things might be up in the air, as they are for a lot of us, right? This is fucking 2021, 2020 2.0, right? So there's a lot of shit that's in the air. But if we take it slow and steady, hold the course, do what's best for us, use our tools, even if that tool is painful. Right? We can lose it if we don't need it. But if it's useful, use it. Use it to illuminate your path. Take not what you don't need, ya bitch. You're welcome. So yeah, that's my my reflections on this full moon, how we can kind of look at this full moon, because of course the full moon in Pisces season comes by once a year, right? So does each one. And so this full moon in Virgo is but once a year. But in this time, we can always reassess, what does it mean? What does it do? What can we grow from this? Because that's really an important thing. So those are my reflections again. Virgo and the Hermit, really interesting, powerful card that is really interesting. And these are 3 different versions of it. And of course, there's 3 different versions of our moon. I went over the moon again in a prior video, so if you want to have a deeper dive for just this card in Pisces season, definitely check that out. Links are in the description box down below. But with that said, if you like what I do, follow me on all the fucking things. Twitter is child subnormal because I couldn't figure it out because I'm a 31-year-old lady. But if you like what I do, you want to work with me, hit me up at subnormalchild.com, subnormalchild on IG, and TikTok. So, with that said, have a blessed full moon. If it supports you, maybe do some journaling around what is your slow journey looking like through the mutable rest of this season, the very last bit of winter before we start spring. What seeds are you planting, baby? What are you doing? Maybe also take out your Hermit and your Moon card to just use as a reflective source while you're going through this like last bit of winter. And of course, please take care of yourself. Put some comments down below if you have questions. Reach out to me. I love you and hope you have a beautiful full moon. Bye.